Testing. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Testing red end. Testing red end. Testing joys and concerns. Joys and concerns.
Good morning on this rainy day. Welcome to the Community Church at Chapel Hill Unitarian Universalist. My name is Larry Ross, and I'm a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you've arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. And I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and to call your attention to the special note for you, welcome guests and newcomers on the back side of the order of service. Our minister is the Reverend Tom Belote, and today's speaker is the Reverend Alison Eskildsen, member of the church. And for those of you attending online, a link to the order of service is provided in this morning's email, as well as the words to the hymns. In October, in response to guidance from public health officials, we shifted our masking policy. Masks are still required in the sanctuary and in religious education on Sundays. Elsewhere, masking is optional. Thank you for continuing to make our congregation welcoming to those with fragile health and compromised immunity. The Sunday social is at 12:15, and the online small group social will be hosted by Rachel Rose at 1 o'clock. The Zoom link is in the weekly announcements and the morning's email. Eating and drinking indoors is permitted. During this time, coffee and tea service will be available either outdoors, and probably not today, and indoors in the Jones Building. And finally, this would be a good time to turn off or silence any cell phones during our service to maintain a worshipful experience. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay out there? Awesome. So my name is Ronnie Pulley, and we play in a performance group with Triangle Drumming and Wellness. We're located out of Chapel Hill, Durham, Raleigh, Cary. And today we're very proud and honored to bring this music from our ancestors from West Africa. This music has been passed down for over 1,000 years from the ancestors of West Africa, and it's their intention to share this tradition of this music throughout the world and for many, many generations to come. They want to keep this music sacred, and they want everybody to know that it's for you as well. So this music is for all people. It's not bound by gender, age, religious association, or political affiliation. So our Grandmaster Mamadi Keita wants to know that this music is all about a universal language, and that language is called joy, love, community, and connection. So with that in mind, we'd like to open up with a rhythm called Moribiasa, and my good friend Pam Webb is going to talk about where the music comes from, why it's played, and who plays it.
Thanks, Ron. Oops. Moribiasa is a rhythm played for women. It's a vow, a once-in-a-lifetime vow that a woman can take if she has problems in her life. And if she gets the problem solved, or if she doesn't get the problem solved, this vow is taken, and she dances around the village in tattered clothes, goes out to the outback, and takes her tattered clothes and buries them in front of a mango tree. Then she puts her finery on, goes back to the village, and they celebrate. And it's a great celebration.
Thank you so much for sharing your talking drums and for being with us this morning. If you were in a food coma, I think you probably are awake now. So I hope you did have a fine Thanksgiving. You know, we often associate Thanksgiving with an abundance of food, but really the true meaning of Thanksgiving is to acknowledge and be grateful for all of the blessings in our lives. So I'd like to take a moment for you just to shout out now, from where you are, what are some of the blessings that you are grateful for in your life? Just grandchildren, is that what I heard? Family, health, community, friends, music. Say that again? A roof over our heads, yes, yes. Rain, yes. And what was that? Games. I'm sure some of you played games. I know I played a number of games this past Thanksgiving holiday. It is good to remember that even despite the conflicts in the world, the stress that we may experience, the disappointments we may feel, and even the sorrow that we feel over the loss of life due to gun violence in our country, that there is still reason to be grateful for being alive. And there is work that we can do to bring more love and peace in the world. And we can do that on more than just one day. I am also grateful, in addition to all of those things that you mentioned, I am grateful for Unitarian Universalism and the fact that our faith tradition allows us to seek out truth and learn from so many different traditions. And this morning we're going to be turning to African traditional religion to see what wisdom we can learn from that tradition. And it is a joy to bring that tradition in its music as well as in its beliefs and practices into our sacred space here this morning. And so with that, let us put flame to our chalice as Larry leads us.
Please join me in saying the words for the chalice lighting printed in your order of service. We light this chalice for all who preceded us and for those who will follow. We light this chalice for those who will burn a flame for us when we are no longer. The shines who came before, those who will come later, and for us who live in between, linking past and future together. And please join me and rise if you are able, singing the opening hymn this morning, 349, We Gather Together, in our gray hymnal, number 349. We have two readings this morning. The first reading is a poem titled Breaths by a Senegalese poet and storyteller, Biago Diop. This poem may sound familiar because it is the basis for a Sweet Honey and Rock song by the same name. Listen more often to things than beings. Hear the fire's voice, hear the voice of water. In the wind, hear the sobbing of the trees. It is our forefathers breathing. The dead are not gone forever. They are in the paling shadows, in the darkening shadows. The dead are not beneath the ground. They are in the rustling tree, in the murmuring wood, in the flowing water, in the still water, in the lonely place, in the crowd. The dead are not dead. Listen more often to things rather than beings. Hear the fire's voice. Hear the voice of water. In the wind, hear the sobbing of the trees. It is the breathing of our forefathers, who are not gone, not beneath the ground, not dead. The dead are not gone forever. They are in a woman's breast, a child's crying, a glowing ember. The dead are not beneath the earth. They are in the flickering fire, in the weeping plant, the groaning rock. The wooded place, the home, the dead are not dead. Listen more often to things rather than beings. Hear the fire's voice, hear the voice of water. In the wind, hear the sobbing of the trees. It is the breath of our forefathers. The second reading is a quote by American author Alice Walker from In These Dissenting Times. To acknowledge our ancestors means we are aware that we did not make ourselves, that the line stretches all the way back, perhaps to God or to gods. We suffer, rebel, fight, love, and die. The grace with which we embrace life, in spite of the pain, the sorrow, is always a measure of what has gone before.
Thank you, Larry. In Biago Diop's poem, he writes that the dead are not dead. They are in the water, the fire, the earth, the home. The dead are not gone forever. They are everywhere. His poem expresses a belief common to African traditional religion. The term African traditional religion does not mean to imply that there is one common set of beliefs across all of sub-Saharan Africa. Just like in Native American religion, there is not one common belief or practice, there are commonalities across different ethnic and cultural groups in Africa. Veneration of the ancestors is a common practice, and it is based on the belief that the dead are not dead. Even if someone identifies as a Christian or Muslim, traditional beliefs form a cultural backdrop coexisting with newer beliefs. Many cultures honor the dead. The Mexican Day of the Dead, Chinese Tomb Sweeping Day, Hindu Pitru Paksha, and Christian All Saints and All Souls Days all pay homage to the ancestors. But in African traditional religion, venerating those who have gone before occurs more than one or a few days a year. Traditionalists believe the spirits of one's ancestors are present every day and must be honored regularly. Because the dead are not dead, a person ignores the ancestors at their own risk. A common West African proverb cautions, quote, "The ancestors may annoy you, but don't make the mistake of annoying them back. They may annoy you forever." To avoid bad luck, like a water well drying up, the ancestors receive honor by someone making a libation or offering a grateful prayer. Additionally, one honors them by leading a good moral life, as the ancestors did when alive. In this way, the ancestors promote proper behavior and strengthen family loyalty and community bonds. Fortunately, not everyone who dies becomes an ancestor. To be worthy of veneration, generally 3 criteria must be met. First, the person must have lived a good moral life. Bad guys need not apply. Second, the person must be old enough to have experienced a full life and gained wisdom. A child cannot become an ancestor. Third, the person must have, have at least one child, preferably a male, to fulfill the ritual functions of honoring their ancestor kin and to carry on the family name. Veneration is not worship. The ancestors do not become gods. They're more like saints who can intercede in a person's life. Whether taken literally or symbolically, the ancestors' spirits linger on to curse or bless the living. Some may call this superstitious nonsense and easily dismiss African traditional religion as primitive and not to be taken seriously. I do not. I believe our ancestors do live within and around us. They are everywhere, not only in spirit, like America's founding fathers, but in our very DNA. As the brief passage by Alice Walker claims, we do not make ourselves. Who we are is a measure or partial result of those who came before. Our ancestors have left us with a legacy of war, enslavement, genocide, poverty, environmental degradation, and so much more. But they have also left us with gifts of artistic beauty, generosity, ingenuity, and deep wisdom. They inform our family traditions and family dynamics. Like African ancestors, our parents and grandparents, teachers, and other models, whether right or wrong, they teach us how to behave, whether they are currently living or not. We imitate those who raised us in ways we may not even be aware of. Perhaps you've seen the Progressive insurance advertisements where there is a therapist trying to stop people from acting like their parents. Have you seen these ads? The ads resonate because they are so true. And that keeps many real therapists hard at work. I know my mother and father, who are both dead, live in my head, especially in the holiday seasons. Think about your recent Thanksgiving dinner. If you prepared the meal, you probably served foods you might have been served as a child. Do you prepare the same foods year after year? I see some of you nodding your heads. When new families are created, perhaps by marriage, do you experience conflict over what foods should be served? Or in my family, how long to cook the turkey? Do you disagree about whether to serve rolls and potatoes or sweet and white potatoes? Do you know why you hold these truths, your traditions, so strongly? Your ancestors may not truly be dead either. Traditions and morality may not be all we inherit from those who have gone before us. Swiss psychologist Carl Jung wrote in his book, Memories, Dreams, Reflections, published in 1961, the following: I feel very strongly that I am under the influence of things or questions which were left incomplete and unanswered by my parents and grandparents and more distant ancestors. It often seems as if there were an impersonal karma within a family, which is passed on from parents to children. It has always seemed to me that I had to answer questions which fate had posed to my forefathers and which had not yet been answered, or that I needed to complete, or perhaps continue, things which previous ages had left unfinished. Contemporary psychologists agree our ancestors' suffering and unfinished business can become our own. The American Psychological Association calls this intergenerational trauma. Dr. Joy DeGruy, a Black social work researcher, outlines a theory she calls post-traumatic slave syndrome to explain the ongoing impact of structural racism evidenced in health disparities, economic disadvantages, and segregation of blacks from whites. She writes, post-traumatic slave syndrome is a theory that explains the etiology of many of the adaptive survival behaviors in African American communities throughout the United States and the diaspora. It is a condition that exists as a consequence of multi-generational oppression of Africans and their descendants, resulting from centuries of chattel slavery. A form of slavery which was predicated on the belief that African Americans were inherently genetically inferior to whites. This was then followed by institutionalized racism, which continues to perpetuate injury. Sadly, African Americans are joined by Jewish and Native American communities in dealing with multi-generational systemic racism. And now, being added to those traumas, the GLBTQ plus community is experiencing multi-generational trauma. As Jung suggests, we have to complete the unfinished work of ancestors such as Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Oscar Romero, and other liberation leaders. They speak to us and live in us. To honor these ancestors, we must interrupt this legacy of intergenerational trauma and racism. Our Unitarian Universalist seventh principle affirms that we exist in an interdependent world. Our UU principles, along with African traditional religion and modern psychology, reminds us that our interdependent web does not exclude the dead. We are connected to what and who have gone before us. And we will leave to our descendants a world in or out of balance, with or without greater love and kindness. The choice is up to each of us. In this season of Thanksgiving, may we honor those ancestors who gifted us with a legacy of love, justice, and moral wisdom. May our lives reflect the high ideals expressed in all 7 of our Unitarian Universalist principles, so that we may become the ancestors our descendants need us to be. May it be so.
We now take an offering that allows us to exercise a generosity of spirit that will support this church and its many ministries. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. As the baskets are being sent through the congregation, please use the QR code on the back of the order of service if you wish to make an electronic gift. If viewing online, please offer your gift by going to the church website.
As Reverend Alison mentioned earlier, our ancestors' presence is still with us today. And I'm reminded of that sometimes whenever we play music. We can hear what sounds like singing in the background. So we're thinking that the ancestors are probably happy with how the music is being played and not annoyed, so they won't annoy us later. So this next rhythm we're playing is called Funga. It's not the same as On Your Itinerary. This one is, we decided to play this one because it's a welcoming song about peace. It's from the great Babatunde Olatunji. Funga comes from Liberia. And in the tradition of West African music, whenever you see drumming, you also see dancing and clapping and singing. So it's really a community thing, unlike here in this country where a lot of times you'll go watch music and you just sit there and watch. And in Africa, everybody joins in. So whenever we play this, we would invite you to also clap and sing along with us. The song to the rhythm is very simple. It's Fanga Alafia Ashe Ashe. And it's a call and response type of rhythm. So I'll sing it first, Fanga Alafia Ashe Ashe, and then you'll respond in kind. And so whenever the ladies are singing, you'll just sing along with them. And we also invite you to clap along with us as well. So that's Funga. Before we go to Funga, I'd like to introduce the members of the group, or have them introduce themselves, and also a little bit about the drums we play, which come from West Africa. So over here on the right, we have Janet Schaefer. Janet Schaefer. And she's playing the kinkani, which is a high-pitched drum. Kinkani is sort of like the timekeeper of the music. Over here in the middle, we have Linda Orovitz. And Linda's playing the dundumba. The dundumba is the bass. It holds down the bass or the bottom of the rhythm. And over here, Kim Kreider. Kim's playing the songban. The songban's like the mother. So we have trained that if we get lost in the music or we get out of line, we just follow mother and get back in track. Okay, so this is Funga. Again, we invite you to play along with us, sing along with us. So again, it goes Funga Alafia Ashe Ashe. Ashe.
Each week, we hold a time in our worship service for the sharing of significant joys and sorrows. If you have a personal joy or sorrow, please come forward, place a stone in the water, speak your name into the microphone, and briefly share your joy or sorrow. Let us enter into this time of tenderness and trust.
Hi, my name's Sarah, and I have a joy to share. Last weekend, my youngest and last baby turned 2, so it's exciting.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Warnash. I dropped 2 stones, one in memory of my father's death. It's 13 years. He died the day before Thanksgiving, which I think was November 25th in 2009. The other stone is my younger son, who went off to the Naval Academy this past summer, was home for Thanksgiving, and it was so great to see him. And I am just endlessly proud of him and so inspired by his dedication to this meaningful path at such a young age. Thank you.
I have a I have a West African joy. Having worked in Ghana for about 5 years in the 60s, I really remembered that work there as a missionary priest, that this was basically a joy if I go back to it and see how they lived together, sung together, mourned together, in all simplicity and frugality. So it reminded me of a joy of living together in maybe material wants, but they were not perceived as really wants. And so life was vital and joyful for most of them.
The last stone is for all those joys and sorrows this morning that were unspoken, but live in our hearts and are no less real.
Before we take a moment for a prayer and meditation, I invite you to take out your teal hymnal and turn it to 10,001 in preparation for our singing, and you can just let it rest in your lap in readiness. That way you won't have to be fussing for it later. And now I invite you to join me in a moment of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, God of many names, source of all that is good, we pause to give thanks for the life that we have been given. In the face of our sorrows, for deaths, for war, for violence, we gather to support one another. And in our shared love, we celebrate with one another our appreciation of knowing other cultures, our appreciation of the passages in our lives, in our children's lives, and our parents' lives. We celebrate all our joys as a community. Let's take a moment just to breathe in and breathe out. And just bring ourselves calmly and centered. What you breathe in is the oxygenated air from the trees. You breathe in molecules of water from the rain. You breathe in the air of the ancestors. And it is your ancestors who gave you this ability to breathe, to experience life's joys and sorrows. In the silence to follow, I invite you to offer your own silent prayer of thanks to the ancestors. Whether your ancestors were more or less honorable, they did give us life. It is up to us to make our lives what we will. Let us be silent a moment. You may remain seated as we sing 10,001. Unitarian Universalist Dr. Issei Maria Barnwell put music to the words of Barago Diop for this song, Breaths. For closing words, I share a prayer titled inspired by our ancestors, by the Reverend Leah Derlin Jones, a minister at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Charlottesville, Virginia. For those who came before us, we offer gratitude and thanks. May their memories be a blessing. May we feel surrounded by their love. As we go forth from this time and place, let us be inspired by their courage, their wisdom, and their dreams. Let us honor them by doing the work of living boldly, loving mightily, and creating heaven on earth. Amen, and blessed be. Ashe. Dr. Barnwell wrote the words and music to our closing hymn, number 1051 in the Teal Hymnal. Of this hymn, Barnwell said, quote, "Each and every one of us stands atop a lineage that has at its core mothers and fathers and teachers and dreamers and shamans and healers and builders and warriors and thinkers and. So in spite of our uniqueness, we come from and share every experience that humankind has ever had. In this way, we are one. Let us be one by rising in body or in spirit to sing and sing boldly. We are.
Please remain standing and say the extinguished words for the chalice lighting. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And if you would like to join hands or put your hands over your chest to sing our closing song, Shalom. Oh, and before we do that, let's thank the musicians who joined us today. Shalom.
Carry on.
Yeah. Waiting for that. Shalom, my friend, shalom, my friend, shalom, shalom. We'll meet again, we'll meet again, shalom, shalom.